Tom Stoppard and the Pleasure of Thinking by Szoo Wilson. www.jillsoowilson.com. Few playwrights have occupied the role of public intellectual as successful as Tom Stoppard. During the final decades of the 20th century, he held a place in the theatrical imagination that is difficult to overstate. His plays filled major houses on both sides of the Atlantic. Critics treated each new work as a significant cultural event. Audiences arrived prepared to engage with questions of philosophy, history, mathematics, science, aesthetics, politics, and language itself. Theater once again served as a gathering place for intellectual inquiry, and Stoppard became one of its most dazzling architects. The achievement remains impressive because Stoppard built his reputation on material that should, by conventional wisdom, have failed. He wrote plays about epistemology, chaos theory, Russian intellectual history, literary criticism, quantum uncertainty, and the relationship between art and truth. His characters quote poetry, debate philosophy, and wrestle with ideas that rarely appear outside university seminars. Yet audiences embraced the work with remarkable enthusiasm. Productions of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, The Real Thing, Travesties, Arcadia, and The Coast of Utopia became landmarks of contemporary theater, demonstrating that intellectual complexity and popular success can thrive together. Stoppard's influence continues into the present. His plays remain fixtures of university and conservatory training programs and continue to appear on the stages of regional theaters and major metropolitan companies alike. His most recent major work, Leopoldstadt, 2020, earned widespread acclaim and reminded audiences that one of modern theater's most formidable dramatic voices remains fully engaged with the stage. Drawing upon his own family history, the play traces the fate of a Viennese Jewish family across multiple generations, while exploring questions of identity, assimilation, memory, and loss that have occupied Stoppard throughout much of his career. Students continue to encounter Arcadia and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead in classrooms, rehearsal halls, and production seasons, while directors and actors return to the work because it offers a rare combination of intellectual rigor, theatrical ingenuity, and profound human complexity. The continued vitality of Stoppard's work makes its contemporary relevance all the more striking. Questions of truth, memory, authenticity, uncertainty, knowledge, and interpretation now shape political discourse, social interaction, journalism, education, and public life. Artificial intelligence raises questions about consciousness and understanding. Social media blurs the boundary between performance and identity. Historical memory, competing narratives, and disputes over interpretation increasingly influence how societies understand themselves. The intellectual terrain of the 21st century bears a striking resemblance to the dramatic terrain Stoppard explored decades ago. This resemblance reveals one of the most remarkable aspects of Stoppard's achievement. The questions themselves remain familiar, yet the conditions under which they are explored have changed considerably. Public conversations often unfold at extraordinary speed as information circulates continuously and arguments emerge, evolve, and disappear within hours, creating conditions in which the pressure to respond frequently outpaces the opportunity to reflect. Stoppard's plays operate according to a different rhythm. They invite audiences to linger with uncertainty, pursue difficult questions through sustained inquiry, and experience the pleasure of thinking alongside the characters on stage. His work therefore offers more than a collection of intellectually ambitious plays. It demonstrates theater's unique capacity to transform abstract inquiry into lived experience, allowing questions of knowledge, interpretation, truth, and meaning to acquire immediate emotional and dramatic consequence. Curiosity alters lives, interpretation shapes identity, and knowledge influences relationships, decisions, and self-understanding in ways that draw intellectual inquiry into the realm of human consequence. Philosophy enters the realm of human connection. where questions of truth, meaning, and understanding acquire immediate dramatic consequence. Few playwrights have shown more clearly that complexity can generate suspense, ambiguity can deepen emotional investment, and thought itself can become a source of theatrical vitality. Stoppard's work rests upon a profound confidence in the audience and upon a conviction that curiosity, patience, and intellectual engagement are sources of pleasure rather than obstacles to enjoyment. His plays assume that audiences will follow complex arguments, wrestle with ambiguity, and derive satisfaction from sustained inquiry, even when certainty remains elusive. These assumptions shaped some of the most celebrated works of the modern theater and continue to resonate because the intellectual appetites they acknowledge remain deeply rooted in human experience. The age of the public intellectual. Tom Stoppard arrived on the scene at a moment when intellectual life occupied a prominent place within public culture. The decades following the Second World War produced rigorous debates about politics, philosophy, literature, science, and history that extended well beyond the walls of universities. Intellectuals appeared regularly on television. Figures such as Marshall McLuhan, Noam Chomsky, and Susan Sontag participated in public conversations that reached broad audiences. Philosophers including Bertrand Russell and Jean-Paul Sartre became recognizable cultural figures whose ideas circulated far beyond academic philosophy. Literary criticism reached wide audiences through publications such as the New York Review of Books and the Times Literary Supplement, while newspapers devoted substantial space to essays and reviews that assumed readers possessed curiosity, patience, and a willingness to engage complex ideas. Theater existed within this larger ecosystem of inquiry and served as one of its most dynamic forums. British theater flourished within this climate. The post-war stage became a site of artistic experimentation as playwrights grappled with the political, social, and philosophical consequences of a rapidly changing world. Audiences encountered the moral seriousness of John Osborne's Look Back in Anger, the political investigations of Arnold Wesker, the linguistic precision of Harold Pinter, the existential landscapes of Samuel Beckett, and the epic historical ambitions of Peter Brook's landmark productions. The decline of empire, the expansion of higher education, the threat of nuclear annihilation, the Cold War, and the emergence of structuralism, post-structuralism, and new scientific paradigms created fertile conditions for dramatic innovation. Theater participated directly in larger cultural conversations about authority, truth, identity, and the possibility of meaning in an increasingly complex world. Stoppard occupied a distinctive place within this landscape. Language fascinated him in ways that recall Pinter, through his theatrical temperament possessed a very different energy. Philosophical inquiry drew him toward territory associated with Beckett, while his delight in wit, paradox, and verbal play often evokes the influence of Oscar Wilde. His work emerged alongside a generation of writers and thinkers who treated ideas as dramatic material. Yet Stoppard's particular gift involving transforming intellectual inquiry into theatrical pleasure. Politics, history, science, aesthetics, and philosophy appear throughout his work, though his deepest interests concern the nature of knowledge itself. How do human beings know what they know? What constitutes truth? How does language shape perception? What survives when certainty yields to ambiguity? These questions animate Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, Jumpers, Travesties, The Real Thing, Arcadia, The Invention of Love, and much of the remarkable body of work that followed. The significance of these questions alone does not explain Stoppard's success. Audiences rarely attend theater in search of abstract propositions. They arrive seeking desire, conflict, uncertainty, risk, and human connection. Stoppard understood this principle instinctively. His plays animate ideas through relationships, choices, and consequences, transforming philosophical inquiry into dramatic action and intellectual questions into emotional stakes. Audiences gathered to watch characters pursue objectives under increasingly complex circumstances, while epistemology, chaos theory, history, and aesthetics became part of the dramatic architecture. The ideas expanded the experience, deepened the conflicts, and sharpened the stakes. This quality helps explain the extraordinary reach of his work. Contemporary discussions of accessibility often treat complexity as a barrier to engagement. Yet Stoppard's career demonstrates how intellectual ambition can generate engagement when rooted in recognizable human experience. Viewers recognize the terror of uncertainty in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. They feel the ache of lost knowledge in Arcadia. They understand the emotional stakes of authenticity, love, and self-invention in The Real Thing. His characters seek love, understanding, purpose, recognition, and connection. Philosophy acquires urgency because it shapes their lives. Knowledge influences choices. Language governs relationships. Intellectual inquiry becomes inseparable from lived experience. This integration of thought and action presents a particular challenge for actors because Stoppard's dialogue invites admiration through its linguistic brilliance and intellectual precision. The language sparkles, the arguments unfold with extraordinary clarity, and performers can easily become captivated by the ideas themselves while losing sight of the behavior driving the scene. The resulting work may appear intelligent and articulate, yet the dramatic engine weakens whenever intellectual content takes precedence over objective action and relationship. Meisner's emphasis on genuine response offers particularly valuable guidance because it redirects the actor's attention away from ideas and toward the partner. Stoppard's characters discuss philosophy, aesthetics, history, politics, science, and language, yet these conversations rarely function as abstract intellectual exercises. Characters pursue objectives. They seek agreement, challenge assumptions, establish authority, alter another person's thinking, secure affection, gain reassurance, defend a position, or recover a sense of control. Status shifts continually. Tactics evolve from moment to moment in response to changing circumstances. The intellectual content supplies the topic under discussion, while the dramatic life of the scene emerges through action. A debate about aesthetics may conceal a struggle for approval. A discussion of history may become a contest for authority. An argument about truth may function as an attempt to preserve a relationship. The actor's task, therefore, involves more than understanding the ideas. It requires identifying what the character wants, what stands in the way, and how the character attempts to overcome that resistance in real time. Performers occasionally become captivated by the brilliance of Stoppard's language and begin illustrating arguments instead of pursuing objectives. Meisner's approach offers a useful corrective because it locates dramatic energy in the ongoing exchange between two people. The actor listens, responds, adjusts tactics, and continues pursuing something from the partner. Philosophical debate acquires theatrical force because it becomes active behavior rather than explanation. The audience engages the ideas through the unfolding struggle between human beings attempting to influence one another. Uta Hagen's framework proves equally useful. Circumstance remains the foundation of behavior. A character discussing aesthetics may seek approval. Another may pursue affection, authority, forgiveness, or understanding. The subject matter changes from scene to scene. Human desire supplies the dramatic engine. Actors who ground themselves in circumstance and objective discover that the intellectual content gains force through action. This understanding lies at the heart of Stoppard's achievement. His plays treat intellect as a profoundly human activity shaped by curiosity, longing, conviction, and desire. Ideas matter because they influence how people live, love, remember, choose, and understand one another. The clearest way to appreciate this achievement is to examine the plays themselves. Across Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, The Real Thing, and Arcadia, Stoppard transforms uncertainty, authenticity, and knowledge into dramatic action, inviting audiences to experience complex ideas through human relationships rather than abstract argument. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Existentialism enters the mainstream. When Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead premiered in 1966, Tom Stoppard accomplished something exceedingly rare. He transformed a dense philosophical conversation into a theatrical event that captivated mainstream audiences. The achievement becomes even more remarkable when one considers the intellectual currents flowing beneath the play. Questions of existentialism, free will, absurdity, mortality, and identity permeate every scene. Yet the play unfolds with such wit and theatrical energy that audiences often absorb these concerns before fully recognizing their philosophical weight. The historical moment proved particularly receptive to such a work. Throughout the post-war period, existentialist thought had migrated from academic philosophy into broader cultural consciousness. The writings of Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus circulated widely. Questions concerning meaning, choice, and individual responsibility entered public discourse. The devastation of 2 world wars, the threat of nuclear conflict, and the rapid transformation of social institutions created an atmosphere in which traditional sources of certainty appeared increasingly unstable. The theater of the absurd emerged from this landscape, offering dramatic forms capable of expressing the disorientation many people experienced in modern life. Stoppard drew upon this intellectual tradition while simultaneously expanding it. The premise itself displays extraordinary theatrical ingenuity. 2 minor figures from Hamlet, characters so marginal that many audience members struggled to distinguish between them, became the central consciousness of an entirely different play. Shakespeare's larger narrative continues around them, occasionally sweeping them into its current before abandoning them once again to confusion, speculation, and uncertainty. They inhabit a world whose governing logic remains permanently beyond their grasp. The dramatic structure generates a profound philosophical question. What does life feel like when one occupies a story without understanding its design? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern possess fragments of information. They receive instructions, they encounter consequences, they sense patterns emerging around them. Complete understanding remains inaccessible. Every attempt to construct certainty collapses beneath the weight of new contradictions. Their condition resembles the modern human experience with startling precision. Most individuals navigate existence through incomplete information, uncertain motives, fragmented narratives, and outcomes that often appear disconnected from intention. The play's enduring power grows from Stoppard's commitment to uncertainty as a dramatic condition. Many playwrights approach existential questions through explanation or resolution. Stoppard explores the experience of living within uncertainty itself. The audience encounters the same instability confronting the characters. Meaning appears in fragments. Explanations gather momentum before yielding to new complexities. The search for certainty becomes the dramatic action. This intellectual architecture reflected the concerns of its historical moment. Through the intervening decades have only strengthened its relevance. Contemporary audiences inhabit an environment saturated with information and shaped by profound uncertainty. Social media platforms generate competing narratives about reality. Algorithms influence perception through process that remain largely invisible to the people they affect. Political institutions struggle to sustain public trust. Individuals confront an endless stream of information while carrying increasing responsibility for its interpretation. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern would feel entirely at home in such a landscape. Their bewilderment anticipates many features of contemporary life. They search for patterns amid overwhelming complexity. They pursue stable truths while navigating contradictory information. They construct explanations from fragments, revise those explanations, and continue searching. Beneath the play's wit lies a remarkably perceptive portrait of modern consciousness. The play also offers extraordinary opportunities for actors. Some performers gravitate toward the philosophical content and treat the characters as vehicles for ideas. The resulting performances often display intelligence and verbal precision, while leaving the dramatic engine underdeveloped. Stoppard's characters gain vitality through pursuit, response, and relationship. Meisner's emphasis on response reveals a particularly useful path into the play. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern spend much of the evening attempting to orient themselves through one another. Their conversations function as acts of mutual navigation. Each exchange becomes a search for reassurance, confirmation, understanding, or clarity. Repetition work often proves valuable in rehearsal because it exposes the continual shifts in confidence, confusion, frustration, and dependence that shape the relationship. The actor's attention remains rooted in the partner, where the dramatic life of the scene resides. Hagen's framework of objective and circumstance provides similar insight. Guildenstern frequently pursues understanding through analysis. Rosencrantz seeks grounding through connection. Their objectives evolve throughout the play, yet every scene gains momentum when actors identify what they need from one another in the immediate moment. Philosophical discussion acquires dramatic force because it emerges from active pursuit. Uncertainty becomes something the characters experience, navigate, and endure. This dynamic explains why the play continues to resonate with audiences more than half a century after its premiere. Stoppard understood that existential anxiety acquires dramatic significance through human desire. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern fear disorientation. They fear misunderstanding their circumstances. They fear death. They fear meaninglessness. Audiences recognize these fears because they belong to enduring human experience. The continued vitality of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead speaks to a larger truth about theater itself. Audiences engage deeply with complex ideas when those ideas emerge through compelling dramatic action. The play's success reveals a sustained appetite for intellectual theater and a continuing enthusiasm for work that challenges, provokes, and rewards attention. Its place in the repertoire stands as evidence of Stoppard's enduring faith in the audience's capacity to think, question, and participate in serious conversation. That faith remains one of his greatest strengths as a playwright. The real thing and the performance of authenticity. If Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead explores uncertainty, The Real Thing turns its attention toward authenticity. Premiering in 1982, the play examines a question that has become increasingly urgent in contemporary life. How do human beings distinguish genuine feeling from performance? The question unfolds through a series of relationships shaped by love, infidelity, art, and self-presentation. At the center stands Henry, a playwright whose professional life depends upon the construction of convincing illusions. Plays require carefully shaped language. Characters perform identities, and audiences willingly participate in fictional worlds constructed through artifice and imagination. Henry, nevertheless, remains deeply concerned with authenticity and with the possibility that language, love, and sincerity might retain their integrity within a culture increasingly shaped by performance. His struggle emerges from a desire to distinguish genuine feeling from convincing imitation and to discover whether truth can survive within worlds built through acts of representation. These concerns place The Real Thing in conversation with some of Stoppard's deepest preoccupations. Throughout his career, he returned repeatedly to questions of truth, interpretation, and perception. The Real Thing approaches these themes through intimate relationships rather than philosophy or science. The result is one of his most emotionally resonant plays because the questions feel immediately personal. Every audience member understands the desire to know whether another person's words reflect genuine feeling or merely a convincing performance. The play's relevance has only expanded with time. Contemporary life increasingly unfolds through carefully curated presentations of the self. Social media profiles, professional branding, digital communication, and online identities encourage continual acts of performance. Individuals construct narratives about who they are and how they wish to be perceived. The distinction between authenticity and presentation therefore occupies a central place in modern experience. In this respect, the real thing anticipates what might be described as a meta-absurd condition. Classical absurdist drama often confronts characters with uncertainty concerning meaning, purpose, and existence. Stoppard's characters inhabit a different terrain. They remain aware of the stories, performances, and interpretive frameworks through which meaning is constructed. Their uncertainty emerges not from the absence of meaning, but from the difficulty of determining which performances reveal genuine truth and which merely imitate it. The question is no longer whether life resembles a performance. The question concerns how one recognizes authenticity within a world increasingly shaped by performance. For actors, the real thing presents a fascinating challenge. The play repeatedly juxtaposes performed behavior with genuine feeling, creating scenes in which characters navigate multiple layers of intention simultaneously. The temptation involves emphasizing the intellectual sophistication of the writing. The deeper challenge involves pursuing simple human objectives beneath the verbal brilliance. Henry seeks connection. Annie seeks understanding. Both seek forms of honesty that remain difficult to sustain. Meisner's emphasis on response becomes particularly valuable because authenticity reveals itself through attention. Characters discover truth through what they observe, hear, and experience in one another. Hagen's focus on objective and circumstance offers similar guidance. The language sparkles through the dramatic engine remains profoundly human. People seek love, they seek reassurance, they seek certainty. They seek evidence that another person's feelings are genuine. This dynamic explains why the real thing continues to resonate. Beneath its wit and sophistication lies a question that has become increasingly difficult to answer. How does one recognize what is real? Stoppard never offers a simple solution. He does something more interesting. He invites audiences to participate in the search. Arcadia and the Pursuit of Knowledge. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead explores uncertainty. The Real Thing investigates authenticity. Arcadia gathers those concerns into a larger meditation on knowledge itself. Throughout his career, Stoppard returned repeatedly to questions of truth, interpretation, and human understanding, and nowhere did he pursue them with greater breadth or ambition than in Arcadia. Premiering in 1993, the play arrived at the end of the 20th century and anticipated many of the intellectual concerns that would come to shape the 21st. At its center lies a deceptively simple question: how do human beings know the past? The question unfolds through two timelines separated by nearly 2 centuries. Contemporary scholars attempt to reconstruct events that occur at Sidley Park in the early 19th century, while the audience witnesses those events directly. Stoppard creates a dramatic structure in which experience, evidence, memory, and interpretation circulate continually through the action. The characters who inhabit the past understand their immediate circumstances. The scholars who inherit the evidence assemble narratives from surviving traces. Every perspective contributes insight. Every perspective encounters uncertainty. This tension forms the intellectual and emotional foundation of the play. Every character pursues truth. Every character encounters the limits of knowledge. Every discovery expands the field of inquiry. Critical discussions of Arcadia frequently focus on chaos theory, thermodynamics, and mathematics. These elements occupy an important place within the play's architecture, though Stoppard's deeper concern lies with the human pursuit of understanding. Information accumulates, evidence survives in fragments, memory reshapes experience, interpretation transforms facts into narratives. Knowledge emerges through a continual process of discovery, revision, and reconsideration. Thomasina Coverley enters the play at 13 years old, carrying one of the most extraordinary minds in modern drama. She asks questions that adults overlook. Why can nobody reconstruct a jam pudding after the spoon has stirred it? Why do leaves form the shapes they do? Why does order seem to dissolve while pattern persists? The questions emerge from ordinary observation: a bowl of rice pudding, a sketchbook, a lesson, a walk across the estate. Stoppard understood that intellectual discovery often begins in precisely this manner. Great ideas rarely announce themselves with ceremony. They emerge through sustained curiosity applied to the ordinary details of the world. Long before mathematicians formalized chaos theory, she senses hidden patterns moving beneath apparent disorder. Her observations concerning heat, motion, and irreversibility anticipate scientific concepts that would not enter widespread discussion until long after her lifetime. The audience watches a brilliant mind reaching toward discoveries that history will recognize only after her death, creating one of the play's most poignant, dramatic ironies. Part of the play's emotional power resides in that distance between knowledge and recognition. The audience understands what Thomasina cannot. Her life will be brief, her ideas will endure, her notebooks will survive. The future will inherit insights that the present scarcely understands. The image feels strikingly contemporary because Arcadia ultimately concerns the relationship between information and understanding. Modern culture generates information at a scale unimaginable to previous generations. Archives expand, databases multiply. Search engines provide immediate access to vast quantities of knowledge. Artificial intelligence systems process information with extraordinary speed. Alongside this expansion comes an increasing demand for interpretation, judgment, and discernment. Information alone cannot resolve questions of meaning. Human beings remain responsible for understanding what they find. Stoppard recognized this challenge decades before it became a defining feature of public life. The scholars in Arcadia possess extensive evidence, yet they also carry ambitions, assumptions, convictions, and personal investments that shape their conclusions. The play, therefore, explores knowledge as a profoundly human activity in which facts, interpretation, and responsibility remain inseparable. The search for truth requires intellectual rigor and intellectual humility in equal measure. For theater artists, Arcadia offers an equally valuable lesson. The play demonstrates the extraordinary dramatic energy generated when intellectual inquiry grows directly from human desire. Thomasina's mathematical curiosity springs from wonder. Septimus's wit grows from affection, responsibility, and grief. Hannah's scholarship reflects a profound commitment to truth. Every intellectual pursuit carries emotional weight because every pursuit belongs to a human being seeking understanding. Actors sometimes approach Arcadia by placing primary emphasis on its ideas. The language encourages this impulse. The intellectual content commands attention. The dramatic life of the play emerges through the relationship. Meisner's emphasis on genuine response offers a particularly useful entry point. Thomasina seeks engagement from Septimus. Hannah seeks accuracy. Bernard seeks recognition. Every exchange arises from pursuit. The ideas acquire dramatic force because they travel through human interaction. Hagen's framework of objective and circumstance provides similar clarity. The circumstances remain specific and immediate. Objectives remain active. Characters pursue approval, understanding, affection, authority, recognition, and truth. The intellectual content sharpens these pursuits and gives them texture. Thought becomes action. Curiosity becomes behavior. The final scene stands among the most beautiful achievements in modern theater because it gathers the play's central concerns into a single theatrical image. Characters separated by nearly 2 centuries occupy the stage simultaneously as time, memory, knowledge, love, and mortality circulate through the same dramatic space. The audience witnesses both the limits of human understanding and the persistence of human curiosity. Entropy continues its work. Human beings continue their search. The scene captures the central conviction that runs through Stoppard's work. Complete certainty remains elusive, yet the pursuit of understanding remains deeply meaningful. Arcadia assumes intelligence, curiosity, patience, and emotional imagination. It invites audiences to follow complex ideas, trace historical connections, embrace ambiguity, and experience the pleasure of sustained thought. Each revival offers further evidence of the play's enduring power. Students continue to discover it. Actors continue to embrace its challenges. Directors continue to marvel at its construction. The questions at its center remain inseparable from human experience. Conclusion. Tom Stoppard's career illuminates a larger story about theater and the culture that surrounds it. His work emerged during a period that celebrated intellectual curiosity as a public virtue and embraced theater as a place where ideas, emotion, humor, and dramatic excitement could flourish together. The success of his greatest plays demonstrated a powerful appetite for intellectually ambitious drama. Audiences arrived prepared to think, listen carefully, and carry difficult questions with them long after the performance ended. That appetite continues to shape the response to Stoppard's work. Students discover Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead and recognize themselves in its uncertainty. Audiences encounter Arcadia and become absorbed in its exploration of knowledge, memory, and loss. Readers return to The Real Thing because its examination of authenticity, love, and performance speaks directly to contemporary experience. These plays continue to resonate because the questions at their center remain deeply human. Theater frequently measures relevance through contemporary subject matter. Stoppard's work points toward a broader understanding. Enduring plays engage questions that accompany human beings across generations. Truth, identity, knowledge, authenticity, memory, and meaning belong to every era because they belong to human experience itself. Each generation inherits these questions, wrestles with them, and contributes new perspectives to the conversation. For this reason, Stoppard's work carries a particular urgency in the 21st century. Contemporary life unfolds amid competing narratives, fragmented attention, algorithmic influence, historical amnesia, and persistent questions concerning truth and interpretation. His plays engage these concerns through rigorous thought, dramatic vitality, and an abiding interest in how human beings make sense of the world around them. Complexity becomes an invitation to inquiry. Ambiguity becomes a space for discovery. The final moments of Arcadia offer a fitting image through which to understand Stoppard's enduring significance. As music fills the room, figures separated by centuries share the stage, and knowledge, memory, love, loss, history, and imagination circulate simultaneously through the same theatrical space. The scene possesses extraordinary emotional power because it gathers the play's central concerns into a single image while illuminating a conviction that extends throughout Stoppard's work. Complete certainty remains elusive, yet the pursuit of understanding remains deeply meaningful. This conviction unites Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, The Real Thing, and Arcadia, despite their striking differences in subject matter, structure, and tone. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead explores the experience of uncertainty. The Real Thing investigates the challenge of authenticity within a world shaped by performance. Arcadia examines the relationship between knowledge, evidence, memory, and interpretation. Each play approaches a different intellectual problem, yet all three transform abstract inquiry into dramatic action by grounding ideas within relationships, desires, conflicts, and human consequence. Stoppard's enduring achievement therefore rests upon more than intellectual sophistication. His work demonstrates that audiences engage deeply with complexity when ideas emerge through compelling dramatic circumstances and recognizable human needs. Questions concerning truth, identity, authenticity, memory, interpretation, and meaning acquire urgency because they shape the lives of the characters pursuing them. Thought becomes theatrical because thought carries consequences. This insight remains particularly relevant for contemporary theater. Discussions of accessibility often assume that intellectual ambition creates distance between audiences and the stage, while Stoppard's career suggests a different possibility. His greatest plays reveal that complexity and engagement flourish together when playwrights trust audiences to think, question, interpret, and participate actively in the dramatic experience. The continued vitality of his work in classrooms, rehearsal halls, regional theaters, and major productions suggest that this trust remains well placed. More than half a century after Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead first appeared, the questions that animated Stoppard's work continue to occupy the center of contemporary life. Public discourse unfolds through competing interpretations of truth, while questions of authenticity accompany the construction of modern identity, and expanding systems of knowledge generate new forms of uncertainty. The intellectual terrain of the 21st century therefore bears a striking resemblance to the dramatic terrain Stoppard explored throughout his career, making the continued vitality of his work appear less surprising than inevitable. For this reason, the significance of Stoppard's work extends beyond the continued popularity of any individual play. His career stands as a reminder of one of theater's most important possibilities: the capacity to gather people together in pursuit of difficult questions and to transform intellectual inquiry into a shared human experience. The continued success of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, The Real Thing, Arcadia, and Leopoldstadt suggests that audiences remain as curious, thoughtful, and intellectually adventurous as they ever have been. Stoppard built an extraordinary body of work upon that belief, and the enduring life of his plays continues to affirm its wisdom. For more theater essays, literary criticism, and original writing by Szoo Wilson, visit jillsoowilson.com.